she vanished after her shift. Her secret life was the key to solving the case. She punched out of work like she always did. Same smile. Same wave to her coworker. Same walk to the parking lot. It was a quiet night in the sleepy town of Millersville. And 27-year-old Lonnie Carter had just wrapped up her evening shift at the diner. The cameras caught her stepping into the dark, then nothing. She vanished without a trace. No one knew then that the quiet waitress everyone thought they knew had a secret life. And that secret would unravel everything. Before we go any further, pause. Drop the city or country you're watching from in the comments right now. We love seeing how far these stories reach. Now, Lonnie Carter was one of those women everyone adored. She was soft-spoken, hardworking, never missed a shift, and always had that sad little smile that made you wonder if she was hiding a lifetime in a glance. She wasn't married, no kids, lived alone in a small studio apartment over on Willow Creek. The first signs of trouble started the next morning. Her manager, Rita, noticed her absence. Not typical. Lonnie never missed work. She called. No answer. Called again. Straight to voicemail. Rita drove to Lonnie's place. Door locked. Car not in sight. It wasn't long before Rita filed a missing person report. And that's when the puzzle began. The police didn't think much of it initially. Adults go missing all the time. Maybe she took off. Maybe a bad breakup. But friends insisted Lonnie wasn't like that. She had no one. No drama. No enemies. That's what they thought. But secrets never stay buried. When detectives began searching her apartment, everything looked normal. No signs of struggle. The bed was made. Her clothes in order. Dishes in the sink. But her laptop? Missing. Her phone? Gone. Her journal? Ripped apart and burned in the trash can under the kitchen sink. Only partially. That's when the questions began. Who would destroy her journal? Why was her laptop gone? Who would want to erase her? They traced her last steps through CCTV. She was seen leaving the diner at 11:07 p.m. She waved to her coworker, walked down the parking lot, and then nothing. A blind spot. The next camera picked up nothing. Her car never left the lot. It was like she vanished into the night. But then a break came in. A teenage boy found a torn piece of paper near the creek a few blocks from the diner. It was wet, muddy, but readable. It had handwriting. Lonnie's. A single line stood out. He said no one would believe me. Who was he? What wouldn't they believe? Who had Lonnie been talking to? Detectives interviewed her coworkers. They said Lonnie kept to herself. But one waitress, Sarah, remembered something. 2 weeks before Lonnie disappeared, a man came to the diner. Tall, clean cut, probably mid-30s. Wore a leather jacket. Lonnie looked terrified when she saw him. She dropped a cup. Her hands shook.
Lonnie whispered, "He found me." When Sarah pressed, Lonnie brushed it off. Said it was just an ex. But the fear in her eyes? That wasn't an ex. That was something deeper. Something darker. Investigators pulled footage from that night. And there he was. The man. Leather jacket. Cold eyes. He didn't order anything. Just stood there, stared at Lonnie, then walked out. No plate, no coffee. Just silence and intimidation. They ran the image through facial recognition. No hits. Like he didn't exist. And that's when they discovered something even more disturbing. Lonnie had filed a name change 5 years ago. She wasn't born Lonnie Carter. Her real name was Alicia Braxton, a name tied to an old, closed case involving a high-level human trafficking ring out of Chicago. She had testified anonymously. Her face was never shown, but she had helped put away a major player in the ring, a man known only as Dante. And guess what? Dante was released from prison 6 months before Lonnie vanished. Are you starting to feel that chill down your spine? It gets worse. Neighbors recalled seeing a black SUV with tinted windows, parked across from Lonnie's apartment building days before she went missing. It would sit there, engine running, then drive off. Always around midnight. Always watching. One neighbor, an older woman named Mabel, said she saw someone break into the apartment 2 nights before Lonnie disappeared. She reported it, but no one followed up. When detectives returned to check the surveillance again, they noticed something they missed. A reflection. In the window of a nearby store, you could see it. Lonnie walking out of frame. But behind her, just before the footage cuts, a shadow. A tall figure. Walking fast. And that figure matched the man in the leather jacket. Subscribe for the next part of this story. If you're hooked, drop a comment. Tell us what you think happened to Lani. Was it revenge? A cover-up? Or something even darker? Up next, police uncover a second journal hidden behind Lani's wardrobe. What they read inside changes the entire course of the investigation. She was gone. No trace. No calls. No text. Just silence. After that night shift at the diner, Amelia never came home. Her apartment? Untouched. Her bed? Still made. Her cat? And fed. Her phone? Dead. But as police closed one door, a stranger opened another. Drop where you're watching from in the comments right now. Let's see which cities are tuned in to solve this mystery together. This is the story of a young woman who led 2 lives, and how one of those lives held the answer to her disappearance. And if you're not yet subscribed, hit that button now, because what you're about to hear might just stay with you forever. Amelia worked the late night shift like clockwork, every evening at 10 p.m. She tied her curly hair into a ponytail, pulled on her work shoes, and left her tiny apartment, 3 blocks from the all-night diner where she waited tables. She smiled at every customer. Polite. On time. Quiet. No drama. Thursday night, something changed. She clocked out at 6:03 a.m. Surveillance showed her walking to the parking lot. Then, nothing. She never got into her car. She never made it home. It was as if she had evaporated into the dawn. Her mother, Sylvia, reported her missing by noon. Sylvia hadn't heard from Amelia in over 8 hours. Highly unusual. They spoke every day. No missed calls. No texts. Just a mother's instinct screaming, "Something is wrong." Detectives combed the area. They checked security footage, interviewed co-workers, reviewed her phone records. But the Amelia they knew was simple, routine, predictable. No enemies. No threats. Just gone. Then came the first crack. In Amelia's locker, hidden beneath old pay stubs and gum wrappers, detectives found a second phone. A burner. No contacts saved, but hundreds of encrypted messages, private photos, and a name. DL. Who was DL? Why did Amelia have this second life? Detective Ramos, a 12-year veteran with a nose for hidden truths, dug in. The texts were coded but hinted at meetups, payments, and strange instructions. The photos? Glamorous. Amelia, in designer dresses, posing in front of luxury cars, with unfamiliar men, in places she never told her mom about. She wasn't just a waitress. She was something else. Detective Ramos pulled one last thread before calling it a night. He checked the diner's alley camera, just beyond the parking lot, at 6:07 a.m. 4 minutes after Amelia clocked out. A dark sedan pulled into frame. The passenger door opened. A figure stepped out. Tall. Male. Black hoodie. He approached her. She stepped back. He grabbed her arm. She resisted. Then, just before the car blocked the view, she went still. The next frame. The car drove away. Amelia was gone. But here's the twist. The license plate was blurred, but not beyond hope. And in the next 24 hours, Ramos would discover the name behind that plate. It was someone no one could have guessed. Not a stranger. Not a customer. But someone from Amelia's second life. Detective Ramos didn't sleep that night. He couldn't. That blurred plate haunted him. He knew the answer was buried in those few blurry pixels. And by morning, his gut was confirmed. Digital forensics managed to sharpen the video enough. The car was registered under a name. That made the entire investigation take a left turn. Darius Lane. Yes, the DL. In the encrypted burner messages. But here's what chilled Ramos. Darius Lane wasn't just anyone. He was a retired undercover narcotics officer. And 5 years ago, he disappeared from law enforcement. No resignation. No final day. No farewell party. Just off the radar. And now, Amelia, the quiet waitress with a double life, had been texting him. Hundreds of times. The texts painted a strange picture. Meetings in abandoned lots. Late-night transfers. Cryptic instructions like delete everything after tonight. And then there was one message, dated 2 days before she vanished. D. I can't keep this going. I'm out. I mean it. No more. It was the only message that sounded like fear. Ramos called in every favor he had. Within 36 hours, he had Darius's last known address, a secluded cabin 2 hours outside the city, deep in the woods. He went alone. No backup. Just a flashlight, his badge, and that gut feeling he was about to open a door no one wanted to see behind. When he got there, the cabin looked abandoned. But dust doesn't lie. The doorknob had fresh prints. The lock had been recently changed. And inside, evidence of someone who had just left. Food still warm. Ash in the fireplace. A single suitcase open on the floor. And on the wall above the bed, pinned like a shrine, were dozens of photos. Of Amelia. Smiling. Laughing. Walking her cat. Talking to someone off-frame. Some looked like paparazzi shots. Others? Like she'd posed for them. But the most recent photo, she was wearing the same outfit from the night she vanished. In the background, a warehouse. Empty. Graffiti covered. Recognizable only to locals. It was on the edge of the industrial district. Abandoned since the textile company shut down 10 years ago. No electricity. No guards. Just hollowed halls and secrets. Ramos rushed there before sunset. What he found inside would change the course of the entire case. Amelia's phone, her jacket, and a message spray-painted in red on the wall. Stop digging. The next morning, someone tried to break into Ramos's car. They didn't succeed, but they left a note tucked into the windshield. You're looking for someone who doesn't want to be found. Suddenly, the case wasn't just about a missing girl. It was about what she knew, and what she had gotten involved in. Ramos dug deeper into Darius Lane. He found whispers. Former officers who said Darius had been part of something off books. A rogue task force. One that blurred the lines between law and crime. Drugs went missing. Informants vanished. Cases were dismissed with no explanation. Was Amelia one of those informants? Or was she part of something even darker? That's when Ramos got the call. A witness. Anonymous. They didn't give a name. They just said, check Unit 47 in the warehouse. She's there. But not for long. Ramos raced back up this time. And when they opened Unit 47, they didn't find a body. They didn't find Amelia. They found something worse. A cage. Bloodstains. Hair. A torn waitress uniform. Amelia had been there. But now, she was gone again. And the trail was cold. Until a USB was mailed to Ramos's office. No return address. No note. Just a single video file. And what he saw in that video would turn this case from a missing person investigation into a nationwide manhunt. White right pointing backhand index if you're still with us. Drop your theories in the comments. What was on that USB? Where is Amelia now? And who is protecting Darius Lane? Subscribe so you don't miss what's next. The room was silent when Detective Ramos pressed play. The USB had only one video. No title. Just a string of numbers. Coordinates. Maybe. The screen went black for 3 seconds. Then a grainy frame blinked to life. It was Amelia. Tied to a chair. Her face was bruised. Her lip, bleeding. Her hair, tangled like she hadn't slept in days. But her eyes. They weren't scared. They were angry. She looked straight into the lens and said, with a shaky, whispery voice, if you're watching this, then they're coming for you too. Darius isn't alone. None of this is what it seems. I tried to walk away, and they made me disappear. Ramos leaned closer. His throat tightened. Every instinct in him was screaming. She wasn't just in trouble. She was in deep. The video continued. I thought I was helping people. At first, it was just intel. Just names. They said it was off the books. Safer. Cleaner. Then the money started. Then the rules vanished. I didn't know what I was part of until I was in too deep. She looked over her shoulder, like she heard something behind the camera. They used me. I wasn't working for justice. I was working for a cover-up. Static. A jolt in the video. And then another voice came in. Distorted. A man. Calm. That's enough. The video cut to black. The entire clip was 1 minute and 26 seconds long. No location data. No metadata. Whoever sent this didn't want to be found, but they wanted the message heard. Ramos forwarded the clip to the FBI. Within hours, the case was elevated to federal. And with it came restrictions. Red tape. Sudden silence from his usual sources. People who used to pick up Ramos's calls suddenly didn't. But the detective didn't back down. He chased the only new clue, the numbers that titled the video file. They were coordinates, and they pointed to a motel. Off the interstate. Run down. Forgettable. Room 12. When Ramos got there, the room was empty. But inside the dresser drawer, behind a false panel, he found a burner phone. One contact. One thread of messages. All from someone saved as Cloak. And the texts? They were conversations between Cloak and Amelia. Encrypted. Fragmented. But a few stood out. Tonight. You record everything. No names. No faces. Just truth. If they get you, drop the name Echo. Someone will come. Echo. It wasn't a name Ramos had seen in any law enforcement circles. But a week later, that changed. Because a fire broke out at a supposed storage facility downtown. And inside, among the ashes, firefighters uncovered a server rack, hidden behind a steel wall. Encrypted. Untraceable. But one drive survived the fire. And on it, hundreds of files. All tagged with one label. ECHO, eyes closed, hands open. A rogue operation. A shadow project, no official record. But the files didn't lie. They were case notes, transcripts, video logs. Surveillance on judges, journalists, even officers. Blackmail, bribery, asset control, and Amelia? She was mentioned 42 times. She wasn't just an informant. She was an embedded field agent, unofficial, undocumented, but essential. Someone inside had been feeding her to the wolves when she threatened to walk away. She was their loose end, and now, she was the key to exposing them all. Ramos had enough to blow the lid off everything, but the next morning, he got a package, hand-delivered, no label, inside? A single item, his daughter's school ID. Nothing else, no threats. Just a reminder, you're not untouchable. For the first time, Ramos felt fear grip his chest. But he didn't back down. He sent his daughter and wife away under federal protection. He stayed. Because Amelia was still out there, and justice? It was still possible even if it cost him everything. The next clue came from an unlikely place, a priest. Old. Shaky. Walked into Ramos's precinct unannounced. Said he had heard a confession, a woman. Crying. She mentioned a man with a badge, a cage. A warehouse with no name, and a lake where souls go to sleep. And then she left a note, for words. Second key, Raven Hill. Ramos know the place, an abandoned psychiatric facility. Long shut down, rumored to be haunted. But when he got there, he found something even scarier than ghosts. Behind the chapel altar, beneath floorboards, he found a basement. Soundproof, camera-lined. Still warm, someone had been living there. And scribbled on the wall in charcoal. You think this ends with me? That night, Ramos received a call. A voice distorted but unmistakably female. I saw your daughter. His hands clenched the phone. You want Amelia? The voice said, come alone. Come now or you'll both vanish. And then the line went dead. Ramos grabbed his gun, badge, and a recorder. He knew this was a trap, but what choice did he have? He had to go. It had been exactly 14 days since Detective Ramos and Amelia were released. 14 days of silence, 14 days of watching his back. 14 days of wondering when the retaliation would come, and then, it did, not as a gunshot in the dark or a van with blacked-out windows. It came as a letter, hand-delivered to his precinct. No return address. No postage stamp. Just his name, written in block letters, R. Ramos. Inside? A single photo, blurry, black and white, but unmistakable. It was his daughter, not from today, but years ago. She looked to be about 8. In a field, holding a red balloon. The image was faded, but the message was clear. We know your past, and we know hers. There was no threat, no signature. But the threat was loud, and Ramos knew exactly what it meant. Stop digging, but when he got there, it was empty, no sign of a struggle, no blood. No broken windows, just a single envelope on the kitchen table. Same block letters, Ramos. Inside? A USB stick. He plugged it into his laptop. There was only one video. Grainy. Surveillance style, Amelia. Walking into a warehouse, and behind her? A man Ramos hadn't seen in 23 years. His name was Julian Vance back then. Vance had been a golden boy, Navy SEAL turned CIA asset. Smart, ruthless, untouchable until he disappeared. Ramos had always believed Vance was dead. Rumors said he went rogue. Others claimed he turned whistleblower, but now he was very much alive, and Amelia was walking right into his arms. Ramos paused the video and rewound. There, just for a split second, Amelia looked at the camera and winked. She knew she was being watched. This was intentional, but why? Ramos remembered the folder Amelia had given him at the end of episode 2. Rogue Assets, Phase 2. He had been afraid to open it. Afraid of what he'd find, but now, he had no choice. He clicked it open. Inside were 10 dossiers. Each one marked with a code name: Falcon, Sable, Ghost, Viper, Crux, Warden, Shade, Delta, Zephyr, Phoenix. Each file contained a name, a location, a specialty, and a termination status. 5 were listed as retired. 2 marked unknown. 3? Active, unconfirmed. Amelia's name wasn't in the files. But Julian Vance's was. He was Phoenix. And he wasn't just a rogue asset. He was the architect of something called Protocol Javelin. The file was sparse, just one line of description. Infiltrate, manipulate, erase, no trail, no mercy. Ramos knew this was bigger than just a disappearance. Bigger than the Echo operation. This was global, this was personal. He had to find Amelia, and fast. But she didn't want to be found. Because if she had gone to Vance on purpose, there were only 2 possibilities. She was recruiting him, or she was betraying everything. As Ramos dove deeper into the files, something clicked. Every asset listed had been involved in covert operations, linked to missing persons cases, spanning 5 continents. People vanished without a trace, some of them whistleblowers, others civilians, and the more he read, the more one horrifying truth emerged. Amelia hadn't been the first to vanish after her shift. She was just the first to come back. Ramos checked his messages. An encrypted text popped up. She's in Lisbon. 48 hours, come alone. No sender, no location pin. Just a second message 5 minutes later. Or your daughter gets to meet Phoenix too. He had no choice. He packed a bag. Grabbed his badge, his passport, and a sidearm he hadn't used since the 90s. The next flight to Portugal left in 6 hours, and Ramos was already on his way to war. Would you follow the trail if your own daughter's safety hung in the balance? White right pointing backhand index. What do you think Protocol Javelin is really about? Your thoughts could be the missing piece in this mystery. Lisbon faded behind him, but the weight of what Ramos had just discovered made it impossible to breathe. Myra Valencia. He hadn't heard that name in nearly 2 decades. He had buried it, along with the pain, the guilt, and the memories. But now, it was all clawing back. He remembered that night vividly. A classified mission in Morocco, coded sandglass. A woman with encrypted blueprints sewn into her clothing. A child caught in the crossfire. They were supposed to evacuate all civilians. But someone made a different call. And that child was Myra. Ramos had always believed she died in the bombing that followed. He remembered holding her, burned, unconscious, begging her to breathe. She never did. Or so he thought. But Vance Vance knew. He had pulled her from the wreckage, raised her, trained her, molded her into a weapon. Not just any weapon, a counter-L-Win-X. If Amelia was the key to unlocking the agency's hidden intelligence networks, Myra was the failsafe, the ultimate override. And now, they needed both. Ramos was done running. He returned to his apartment in Lisbon, one he hadn't touched in years. He opened the rusted safe behind an old oil painting. Inside, one pistol, one photo, one recording device, and a letter he never sent. The photo was of Myra, 6 years old, laughing. The letter, addressed to Amelia. He hit play on the recorder. His voice crackled through, decades younger. If you're hearing this, it means I failed. It means I chose silence over truth. But you have to know, Myra wasn't just a mission casualty. She was my responsibility, my guilt, and my blood. Amelia had known all along. That's why she vanished. That's why she let Vance in, to get to Myra. But there was more. Something even Vance didn't know. Because Ramos had buried another secret. One he never wrote down. One he swore would die with him. Back in Berlin, Amelia was standing at the edge of a rooftop, watching a silent convoy of black vans unload at a steel-reinforced warehouse. Inside, Myra, now 26, eyes cold, heart unreadable. The moment the sisters locked eyes, the wind stilled. Not because of recognition, but because something in both of them woke up. Amelia took a step forward. Myra flinched, hand hovering near her waist, muscle memory of training, of danger. Do you remember me? Amelia whispered. Myra blinked once, then shook her head. No, but a twitch in her jaw betrayed her. Because somewhere, deep in the neural mapping they both shared, something stirred. A song, a voice, a scar. Ramos landed in Berlin the next morning. He didn't go through customs. He had friends. Old ones. Dirty ones. He was in and out in under an hour, carrying nothing but a suitcase, full of classified tapes and a voice recorder. He headed straight for the warehouse. But he was too late. Gunfire echoed. Screams. And then, silence. What happened inside that warehouse? Did Amelia and Myra make it out? Or did Vance trigger the kill switch too early? Drop your thoughts in the comments. It wasn't just another operation gone wrong. It was a purge. A system reset. The agency had initiated. Protocol Zero, a black level. Directive designed to erase all compromised assets, including anyone who had ever touched Myra Valencia's case file. Inside the warehouse, the standoff had already escalated into chaos. Smoke grenades hissed across the floor, followed by the whine of suppressors and panicked footsteps. Myra stood still in the center of the room, untouched by the confusion. She didn't flinch, didn't speak. Her expression was calm, like she'd been waiting for this moment her entire life. Amelia, crouched behind an overturned table, was shouting her name. Myra, it's me, Amelia. Don't let them take you again. We are the same, you and I. But Myra didn't respond. Until one of the agents, a tall man in tactical black, lunged forward to grab her. In a blink, Myra spun and dropped him with a strike so sharp it didn't look real. She twisted his own, weapon in his hand, and disarmed him. Before his body hit the floor, Amelia stopped breathing. That move. She'd seen it before. In her own reflection. In training videos. In her nightmares. It was Ramos's move. Which meant Myra had remembered something. Outside, Ramos was forcing his way through the last checkpoint. The guards recognized him, but hesitated. Too much history, too many rumors. He shoved his old clearance, badge in their faces, and pushed through the doors. Just in time to see the smoke clear. Amelia was pinned down behind a metal crate. 4 agents surrounded her. But Myra was standing between them, unarmed. I said back off, she snapped at the lead agent. We have orders, the man began. I said, Myra repeated, her voice low and venomous. Back off. The man hesitated, not out of fear, but confusion. Why would Myra, the agency's perfect weapon, protect a traitor? That's when Ramos stepped into the room. His voice didn't echo. It cut. Because she's your sister. Everyone froze. Amelia gasped. Myra blinked. The agents looked at each other in alarm. What did you say? Myra whispered. I should have told you years ago, Ramos said, stepping forward, hands raised. I should have told both of you. I failed you. But you're blood. You're not just some asset. You're my daughter. You're her sister. And you were never meant to be used like this. Amelia shook her head in disbelief. No. You said my parents died in a car crash, Ramos finished for her. That was the story. That was the lie. But they didn't die. They were eliminated. Because they knew what the agency was doing to children. You two were taken separately, trained differently, told different lies. But I was the link. The coward who stayed silent. Myra's lip trembled. Her fingers twitched at her side, not toward a weapon this time, but toward her own chest, like she was trying to rip the truth out. Why? She asked. Ramos's voice cracked. Because I thought I could protect you by disappearing. Drop your thoughts in the comments. It wasn't just another operation gone wrong. It was a purge. A system reset. The agency had initiated. Protocol 0, a black level. Directive designed to erase all compromised assets, including anyone who had ever touched Myra Valencia's case file. Inside the warehouse, the standoff had already escalated into chaos. Smoke grenades hissed across the floor, followed by the whine of suppressors and panicked footsteps. Myra stood still in the center of the room, untouched by the confusion. She didn't flinch, didn't speak. Her expression was calm, like she'd been waiting for this moment her entire life. Amelia, crouched behind an overturned table, was shouting her name. Myra, it's me, Amelia. Don't let them take you again. We are the same, you and I. But Myra didn't respond. Until one of the agents, a tall man in tactical black, lunged forward to grab her. In a blink, Myra spun and dropped him with a strike so sharp it didn't look real. She twisted his own weapon in his hand and disarmed him. Before his body hit the floor, Amelia stopped breathing. That move. She'd seen it before. In her own reflection. In training videos. In her nightmares. It was Ramos's move. Which meant Myra had remembered something. Outside, Ramos was forcing his way through the last checkpoint. The guards recognized him, but hesitated. Too much history, too many rumors. He shoved his old clearance badge in their faces and pushed through the doors. Just in time to see the smoke clear. Amelia was pinned down behind a metal crate. 4 agents surrounded her. But Myra was standing between them. Unarmed. I said back off, she snapped at the lead agent. We have orders, the man began. I said, Myra repeated, her voice low and venomous. Back. Off. The man hesitated, not out of fear, but confusion. Why would Myra, the agency's perfect weapon, protect a traitor? That's when Ramos stepped into the room. His voice didn't echo. It cut. Because she's your sister. Everyone froze. Amelia gasped. Myra blinked. The agents looked at each other in alarm. What did you say? Myra whispered. I should have told you years ago, Ramos said, stepping forward, hands raised. I should have told both of you. I failed you. But you're blood. You're not just some asset. You're my daughter. You're her sister. And you were never meant to be used like this. Amelia shook her head in disbelief. No. You said my parents died in a car crash, Ramos finished for her. That was the story. That was the lie. But they didn't die. They were eliminated. Because they knew what the agency was doing to children. You two were taken separately, trained differently, told different lies. But I was the link. The coward who stayed silent. Myra's lip trembled. Her fingers twitched at her side, not toward a weapon this time, but toward her own chest, like she was trying to rip the truth out. Why? She asked. Ramos's voice cracked. Because I thought I could protect you by disappearing. But all I did was abandon you to them. One of the agents fired. Not at Ramos. At Amelia. But Myra was faster. She moved like lightning. The bullet missed its mark. Myra's counterattack was swift and brutal. The agent dropped. Silence returned. And this time, it stayed. The remaining guards lowered their weapons. Something had shifted in the room. Not fear, not allegiance, but truth. The kind that couldn't be covered up anymore. Outside, sirens wailed. More agents were coming. They had to move. Amelia looked at Myra. Myra looked at Ramos. "We can't outrun this," Amelia said. "No," Ramos agreed. "But we can expose it." He pulled a USB drive from his coat. Every file, every experiment, every name. Amelia grabbed it. "Let's finish what they started." But as they turned to run, the lights cut out. Then a low, familiar voice echoed through the warehouse speaker. "Did you really think I'd let you walk out that easily?" Vance. What will Vance do now that they've found each other? Will the truth see daylight? Or will this be another page buried by silence and shadows? The voice chilled the air, even in a room full of armed operatives, smoke, and exposed secrets. His voice sliced deeper than all of it. "Did you really think I'd let you walk out that easily?" It was Vance, and not through the front door. His voice came from the intercom, old speakers mounted on rusting warehouse walls. But it wasn't just sound. There was surveillance, cameras, heat sensors. He'd been watching the whole time. Amelia's grip tightened on the USB drive. Ramos pulled Myra behind him like a father shielding a child. Myra didn't resist, but her eyes were fixed upward, scanning the walls like a caged animal sensing her predator. Then came the sound. Click, click, click. Not a bomb, not footsteps, but doors, locks, steel gates rolling down one by one. Vance was sealing the exits. "I've let you run for long enough," he said calmly. "I gave you chances. Even now, you could walk away. But you brought her into it." There was venom in that last word. Her. He meant Myra. She was mine to guide, mine to finish. And now, you've poisoned her. The lights flickered. And then, for the first time in years, Myra spoke with rage. "I was never yours." The room held its breath. Then chaos resumed. A side panel exploded inward. A tactical team, masked, red-badged, rushed the room. But these weren't the same agents from before. These were the cleaners. Ruthless. Fast. Silent. Ramos shoved Amelia toward the far door. "Run. Don't stop." Amelia grabbed Myra's hand. Myra hesitated. "What about him?" she asked, pointing to Ramos. But Ramos was already pulling out something from his pocket. Not a gun. A detonator. "No." Amelia screamed. "There's another way." But Ramos shook his head. "I've done enough damage," he whispered. "Let me end something, for once." He looked at Myra, and something ancient passed between them. Not military. Not tactical, but familial. A look of recognition, and then he pressed the button. The blast didn't kill anyone. It didn't need to. It was a flash disruptor, designed to blind cameras, jam comms, and stall pursuit for 45 seconds. Enough time. Myra and Amelia bolted through the back corridor, barefoot, bleeding, but together. Behind them, the warehouse echoed with curses, static, and Vance's voice screaming, "You think you've won? I built you. I own you." They ran. Through alleys. Through backstreets. Through a city that didn't want to remember them. Myra led now. Every turn. Every shortcut. Her instincts kicked in like muscle memory had finally returned. She wasn't lost anymore. They reached the safe house at dawn. Not a bunker. Not a weaponized fortress. Just a quiet apartment above a closed bookstore. There, Amelia plugged in the USB drive. The files were all there. Photos. Names. Records of medical experiments on children. Audio files of Vance giving commands. Documents signed with initials they'd long buried. It was everything. But releasing it would mean war. Not just headlines. Not just disgrace. This would topple people. Start riots. End careers. Maybe even get them killed. Amelia looked at Myra. Myra, now calm, said, "If we die honest." They uploaded everything. To the press. To public servers. To encrypted channels. The truth was out. But it wasn't the end. That night, Amelia checked her phone. A new voicemail. Unknown number. One message. You think truth will save you? You think exposure is power? I don't need secrets anymore. I have fear. It was Vance again. But this time, his voice wasn't threatening. It was trembling. He knew something they didn't. And it wasn't over. Not yet. Because the deeper we dig, the darker it gets. It had been 27 days since Mila vanished. Her face now lived on flyers, in gas stations, outside grocery stores, on missing person podcasts, and in the nightmares of everyone who loved her. But what no one could shake was the silence, the deafening, unnatural silence that surrounded her disappearance. No trace, no struggle, no goodbye, just nothing. But that silence was about to be broken. A woman working the night shift at a local shelter downtown reported seeing someone who looked just like Mila a week ago. The woman hadn't called the police immediately. She assumed it wasn't possible. But that lingering feeling wouldn't leave her, so she picked up the phone. She gave her statement. The detective assigned to Mila's case didn't brush it off. This was the first lead in nearly a month. They pulled CCTV footage from the alley across from a shelter. At 1:42 a.m., a figure with a hoodie stepped into frame. Her face wasn't visible, but her walk, her posture, it mirrored Mila's. The police took it seriously. They enhanced the footage. The facial features were blurry, but the size, the build, the hair, it was a match. The officer contacted Mila's best friend, Leah, and her older brother, James. James couldn't breathe for 5 seconds. Leah nearly dropped the phone. Hope surged, but so did questions. If that was Mila, why was she near a shelter? Why hadn't she come home? Was she running? Or hiding? Then came another twist. Detectives accessed Mila's email again. They'd previously scanned through her inbox, but this time, they checked the archive folder, something easily overlooked. What they found stunned them. A series of exchanged emails between Mila and someone who signed off with the initials DT. The tone was cryptic. They spoke of freedom, new beginnings, and one chilling line: if things go sideways, remember what we planned. The investigators traced the email address. It belonged to a man named Damien Turner. He worked as a janitor at a logistics company in the industrial area, on the outskirts of town. No criminal record. Kept to himself. Didn't draw attention. But his name wasn't familiar to Mila's family or friends. The detective assigned to Mila's case paid Damien a visit. He opened the door slowly, eyes sunken, voice quiet. When asked about Mila, he hesitated, then said he didn't know anyone by that name. But the way his hand trembled gave him away. Back at the station, they pulled his phone records. Mila and Damien had spoken 3 times in the week before she vanished. But all calls were under a minute. Investigators dug deeper. And then it came, the break they needed. One of Damien's neighbors had a home security camera pointed toward the street. On the night Mila disappeared. The footage showed Damien helping someone into the back of a beat-up van. The timestamp? 3:11 a.m., the exact window Mila would have left the diner after her shift. Was she being forced? Was she injured? Or had she gone willingly? Police issued a warrant. They searched Damien's place. In the basement, they found a cot, a blanket, half-eaten food, water bottles, a backpack with Mila's name sewn inside. But Mila wasn't there. Just when they thought they were close to the truth, it slipped away again. Yet the walls were closing in. And then, just as hope began to fade, a burner phone rang at the precinct. A voice whispered, "Tell Leah I'm sorry. Tell James the first love him. I had to disappear." The call ended. But the voice? It was Mila. And the search took on an entirely new urgency. What was she running from? Who was she protecting? And what had she discovered that made hiding the only option? The answers are darker than anyone imagined. The voice on the burner phone haunted every officer in the room. It was her. Mila. No doubt. Her cadence. Her softness. The slight rasp in her voice when she whispered. Every detail matched. But why didn't she stay on the call? Why just a few seconds? Why now? The phone itself was a $15 burner. No GPS. No SIM registration. Completely untraceable. A ghost phone. It had been left on the sidewalk outside the city's main bus terminal, turned on, placed carefully, almost like it was meant to be found. She wanted to be heard, but not found. The detective couldn't shake the feeling that Mila was protecting someone. Or something. James, her brother, refused to believe she was in hiding voluntarily. Leah, her best friend, was heartbroken. And yet, deep inside, Leah began to question everything she knew about Mila. Because what if this wasn't about fear? What if it was about control? 2 days after the call, an anonymous envelope arrived at the precinct. No return address. Inside was a small flash drive. Nothing else. No note. No fingerprints. The drive contained one video. It was grainy. Mila sat in front of a black curtain, her face barely visible. She looked tired, but calm. Almost too calm. She looked straight into the camera and said, "If you're watching this, I need you to know. I chose this. I need it out. There are things you don't know, about me, about the people I trusted. I wasn't who you thought I was, but I never meant to hurt anyone. Please stop looking for me." Then the screen went black. Detectives ran voice analysis, facial recognition, background noise filters, everything. It was real. Recorded recently. But where it was filmed? Still unknown. James broke down after watching it. Leah locked herself in her apartment for 3 days. She played the video on loop. Every word, every pause, every blink, it didn't make sense. Mila wasn't just running. She was disappearing on purpose. But from what? The police turned back to Damien Turner, the last known connection. They searched his financials, devices, online history. Hidden in one of his cloud backups was a journal. A digital log. The entries dated back a year. That's when it all began. Entry after entry revealed a quiet, secret relationship between Damien and Mila. But it wasn't romantic. It was strategic. Mila had discovered something at her second job. Not the diner, but her cleaning shift at a corporate law firm downtown. Late one night, while dusting the managing partner's desk, she'd seen a file. The name on it? Her mother. Mila's mother had died when she was 9. She was told it was a car accident. But this file suggested something different. It detailed a settlement, a gag order, a whistleblower complaint, and at the heart of it, a case involving illegal clinical trials, run by a pharmaceutical company, one that had once operated under the same roof as the law firm. Mila dug deeper. Quietly, she found out her mother had been a test subject, promised money, promised a better life. But she died before she could speak up. Mila was only a child. Her father never talked about it. The firm buried it. Everyone moved on. But Mila hadn't. And now, she was trying to expose them. Damien was a janitor in the same building. He saw her, night after night, researching, copying files, photographing documents. He asked questions. She eventually trusted him. They planned her exit together. But something went wrong. The journal revealed a meeting. A contact. Someone Mila was supposed to meet at a parking garage 5 days before she disappeared. That's when the journal stopped. And now, she was gone. Not kidnapped. Not dead. Hiding. Because she knew too much. The detective presented this to the department. But without Mila, they couldn't build a case. Without a whistleblower, the files were just fragments. They needed her. And they weren't the only ones. Because the people Mila was running from, they were now looking for her too. And they weren't police. Or journalists. They were something far worse. Private. Ruthless. Paid to erase problems. Mila was running out of time. By the time the detectives pieced together Mila's connection to the pharmaceutical trials, the story was already beginning to spiral far beyond anything they expected. The files weren't just about her mother. They were about hundreds of other women, most from low-income communities, undocumented and untraceable. Women who'd signed waivers they couldn't read, offered money they never received, and whose deaths were filed away as accidents or natural causes. The law firm, still operational, still respected, had been the legal backbone behind the silencing of every single one of those cases. And Mila. She had the proof. The question was, where? Back in Leah's apartment. She went through her friend's personal diary for the first time. At first, she felt guilt, but curiosity and fear outweighed it. Tucked in between a half-finished poem and a grocery list, she found it. A folded piece of paper. Handwritten instructions. If anything happens to me. The backup is in the red tin, behind the vent. Top right corner of the bedroom closet. Password, Silent Witness 1996. Leah's heart raced. That tin had always been there. Mila said it was a childhood memory box. No one ever touched it. She rushed into the bedroom, yanked the closet door open, and pulled the tin free. Inside was a flash drive. No label. No indication. Just cold metal. Waiting. She plugged it into her laptop. It contained over 2,000 files. Documents. Photos. Videos. Voice notes. Audio recordings of meetings. Correspondence. Surveillance footage from the law. Firm's offices. Time-stamped from late night. Cleaning shifts when Mila should have been vacuuming. She'd been building a case. A real one. Bulletproof. She had named names. Board members. Scientists. Lawyers. Executives. Mila had been months ahead of everyone. And she had prepared everything in silence. But the truth came with a cost. Unbeknownst to Leah, the moment she plugged in the drive, someone else got notified. It wasn't just storage. It was a dead man's switch. If opened, it pinged a digital trail, something. Mila had coded with the help of an old college hacker she once dated. Someone she said was paranoid enough to know how the bad guys think. And that ping went straight to a hidden inbox, monitored by an anonymous collective known only as Wired Spine, a group that specializes in whistleblower protections and investigative leaks. Within 6 hours, Wired Spine published the entire archive. Redacted. Anonymized. Unstoppable. And that's when the real hunt began. The pharmaceutical firm issued a statement denying any wrongdoing. The law firm claimed ignorance. Several board members quietly resigned. A few issued threats, others hired security. But it was too late. Mila had triggered a domino. The media exploded. Justice groups called for public inquiries. And the firm? They offered a 50 million Nigerian nairas bounty for any information about Mila's whereabouts, framed as concerned citizen support for a missing woman. But it was a lie. They wanted to shut her down. The police? Powerless. Without Mila, they had no direct testimony. And Wired Spine would not reveal its sources. Leah tried to reach them. She wanted to help. But she was shadowed. Followed. Watched. One night, she noticed a man outside her apartment. Same spot. Every day. When she confronted him, he smiled and said, "Just making sure you're safe, miss." That's when she knew. She was a target too. She packed a bag, took the drive, and vanished. Meanwhile, back at the precinct, James, Mila's brother, received a postcard. No return address. No message. Just a picture of a quiet village in Guatemala. And a single letter written in black marker. S. He didn't understand it. Not then. But Leah would. Because days later, she received a similar card. Same marker. Different place. A foggy road in Iceland. Letter. T. And Wired Spine. They received a photo. It was Mila. In a crowd. Hoodie on. Sunglasses. Holding up her hand in a peace sign. In the background, a graffiti mural that read, "You can erase a file, not a story." The pieces were forming something. But what? And why the postcards? Was Mila breadcrumbing a message? Or mocking those who tried to bury her? Leah sat in the corner of a rundown hotel room with only the flickering ceiling fan, and her own heartbeat to keep her company. The postcards were lined in front of her on the floor, 5 in total now, each with a different location, each with a single letter. S. T. R. I. P. It didn't take long before the word screamed back at her, "Strip." But that didn't make sense. Mila never gambled, never drank, never lived recklessly. Leah shook her head. No, there had to be more. Another postcard came 2 days later. This time, the letter was E. Then another, D. Now it's spelled striped. Still, nothing. Until the 7th postcard. A misty train station in Prague. Letter, H. And then it clicked. Striped H. Leah grabbed her notebook. Every postcard had a different style of scenery. Street, coastline, train station, mountain range, jungle, glacier, city skyline. All random, yet intentionally curated. And then she noticed. Every background held a hidden tiger. Motif, either as graffiti, a billboard, a child's toy, or even a woman's scarf pattern in the crowd. And Mila used to say one thing whenever she was hiding something. If you want to know where I am, look for the tiger. Always look for the tiger. It was a code from their university days. Back when they snuck around to protest campuses, breaking into buildings to hang feminist banners in the dead of night. Find the tiger meant find the truth hiding in plain sight. So, striped H wasn't a word. It was the beginning of a location. Or maybe a name. A bar. A street. Then, on the 8th day, Leah received a package. No sender. Just a burner phone and a typed note. You're getting close. But you're not safe. We'll contact you when it's time to move. Leah's pulse spiked. Was Mila alive? Still watching? Still directing? The burner buzzed immediately. An encrypted link appeared. She clicked. It opened a hidden livestream. Grainy footage. Surveillance cam. It showed a woman walking down a crowded marketplace in Lisbon. The tiger was back, this time, on a backpack slung over her shoulder. It was Mila. Hair dyed jet black. Skin slightly darker, probably tanned. But her walk, her rhythm, her air, it was her. Leah whispered, "You're alive." But the stream cut out just as fast as it appeared. Wired Spine sent a follow-up. This time through an untraceable proxy email. She's being hunted. Not just by the firm, but by those who've lost millions because of the leak. Names you've never heard. Governments. Lobbyists. International cartels. She didn't just expose a lab. She pulled the thread on a $2 billion a year human testing racket. And now, everything was in motion. Somewhere in the chaos. The lawyer at the center of it all, Barrister Yinka Olyumide. The one whose name appeared 43 times across the leaked files, went missing. He was last seen boarding a flight to Nairobi. His wife reported him missing 3 days later. Interpol found his car, parked neatly in front of a nature reserve. Inside was only a white envelope and a single line handwritten on hotel stationery. She warned me. I didn't listen. The envelope contained a pen drive. Another leak. More files. More names. That's when Wired Spine released the addendum. It was a bombshell. It revealed that Mila's mother was not just a test subject. She had once worked within the pharmaceutical firm, as a chemist. She had started out idealistic, hungry, brilliant, and had eventually become disillusioned after discovering anomalies in the company's research. When she confronted leadership, she was blacklisted and forced out, her credentials invalidated, her visa revoked, and her name scrubbed from the National Chemistry Council. Then came the study she was paid to join, not knowing she was her own lab rat. She died 2 months later, but not before she had written everything down in a hidden journal. Mila had found it years later, and made it her life's mission to finish what her mother started. It wasn't revenge. It was justice. Back in Lagos, Leah found herself receiving one final clue, a torn ticket to a jazz club. On the back were 6 words. Bring the truth. Bring the tiger. She didn't understand it then, but soon she would, because the final act was already in motion. A senator had just been named in the files. A major media house was ready to go live. And Mila. She was one step ahead, waiting at the edge of the storm she created. Leah arrived in Lisbon just after dawn. The burner phone had gone dark, but the last text was clear. Casa do Tigre. 9:15 a.m. Come alone. She stood outside a weathered jazz bar, nestled in Alfama, one of the oldest districts in Lisbon. A faded mural of a tiger stretched across the building side. The same one from the livestream. This was it. Inside, the bar was quiet. No music. Just an elderly man cleaning glassware behind the counter. He nodded at her and slid over a small envelope. No words. Inside it, a plane ticket to Nairobi. And a map. But not a traditional map. This one had no cities. No roads. Just tiger stripes sketched in ink, overlaid with coordinates and initials. TS. MO. CD. YO. Leah recognized them. TS. Tematope Salami. MO. Maria Okonkwo. CD. Charles Dibia. YO. Yinka Olumide. All names from the wired spine leak. All people who had either vanished or died mysteriously in the past 2 years. This map wasn't about geography. It was about the network, the experiment, the cover-up, and Mila had mapped it out. Each stripe represented a story. Each name, a node in a web of pharmaceutical abuse, unethical trials, and political silence. Then Leah noticed something else. At the center of the tiger's body was a shape. A country. Nigeria. Mila was drawing her back home. This had started in Nigeria. The first unofficial test group. It was ground zero. Back at the hotel, Leah plugged in the burner phone to check for hidden folders. There was one. Password protected. She typed in the phrase from the jazz bar ticket. Bring the truth. Bring the tiger. It unlocked. Inside was a 45-second video clip. Mila, alive. Talking directly to the camera. Asterisk asterisk if you're watching this. Then it means I'm either close to finishing or already gone. What we uncovered isn't just criminal, it's surgical. The experiments, the files, the trials, were all part of a multi-country simulation to predict disease. Response in African populations. They called it Project Thermos. Volunteers were injected with prototypes, many never even knew. The tests were buried under fake malaria studies. The consent forms were fabricated. And they did it with approval from very real government officials. We were the test environment. If they silence me, Leah, finish it. Go to Joe's. That's where my mother's journal began. And where the final shipment left 2 years ago. There's a warehouse. Use the map. And Leah, don't trust anyone wearing a white coat. Leah sat back, numb. This was beyond anything she had imagined. And now, she had names. Locations. Proof. But she also had enemies. Because someone else had accessed her email that night. Someone who shouldn't have known where she was. By morning, her hotel room door had been forced open. Her laptop, gone. The burner phone, smashed. But the map. She had already memorized it. And in the quiet chaos of Lisbon's early hours, she booked a one-way flight to Nigeria. She was going back to where it all started. Not just to find Mila, but to expose what they had both risked their lives to uncover. Joe's, Nigeria. A city where hills cradle secrets and dry wind carry stories older than memory. Leah stepped off the bus in the city's heart. Dust clung to her boots and the air held the heaviness of something unfinished. She wasn't here as a journalist anymore. She was a woman chasing the ghost of her best friend. And the shadows of a medical conspiracy. Buried under bureaucratic files and paid-off silence. She took a taxi to an old road locals called Gaiden Motor. House of Cars. It was lined with abandoned repair shops and faded warehouses. Some were boarded shut. Others looked active, but too quiet. Like something illegal was always one conversation away. Mila's map had pointed to one of them. No number. No sign. Just a red dot in the shape of a tiger's eye. She stood outside the compound. The gates were rusted but not locked. That was the first clue something was off. Anything worth hiding usually pretended to be normal. Inside, it smelled of copper, dust, and something else. Something chemical. She followed the rows of wooden crates, unmarked, until she reached a cold storage room. Humming quietly. There were people inside. Not security. Not staff. Survivors. 5 of them. They were seated on the floor, dazed but alert. For drips taped to their arms. Cameras in the corners of the ceiling. And in one corner, a stack of files marked. Thermos Beta, Phase 2 or undocumented. Leah froze. It wasn't just real, it was still active. Suddenly, a voice spoke from behind. I thought someone like you might come. He wore a faded lab coat, glasses, and an ID badge with no name. Just the letters, PTC, Project Thermos Control. You shouldn't be here, he said, almost softly. But since you are, maybe you'd like to know why this warehouse exists. Leah didn't speak. She hit record on the tiny MIC in her pocket and let him talk. It started as a response unit, a think tank to develop resistance protocols. Ebola, Zika, malaria mutations. They tested in rural zones, but the funding dried up when trials turned fatal. So, they went underground, partnered with shadow donors, targeted populations with poor medical coverage. Who'd know? He smiled, bitterly. These people? They thought they were part of a community health program. Vitamin injections. What they got instead was unapproved serums, nanobot trackers, and organ function scans every 72 hours. Leah's hands trembled. And Mila? She asked. He flinched. Mila was one of us. At first. Smart. Passionate. Then she found out about Group 7. The ones who didn't survive. She ran. Started exposing leaks. Sending out emails. We caught some of them. But not all. Where is she? Leah whispered. The man paused. She made it to the next city. Borchi. There's a lab, burned down now. If she left anything, it's there. Then, suddenly, chaos. Sirens outside. Someone tipped them off. A black SUV crashed through the warehouse gates. Masked men with rifles. The survivors screamed. Leah dove behind a crate. The doctor ran. In the confusion, she grabbed a duffel bag with files, IDs, and vials. She jumped through the back window and sprinted into the dry grass behind the compound. Breathless. Scraped. Alive. She didn't stop running until she reached the outskirts of Joe's. In her pocket, one of the survivors' bracelets. Etched in tiny letters, Batch YX77. Status, Candidate. What happened next? Leah races to Borchi to uncover the final lab. But the deeper she digs, the more she realizes Mila didn't just uncover the truth. She became the key to shutting down the program forever. White right pointing backhand index, subscribe so you don't miss the shocking conclusion. And drop a comment if your best friend held the truth to stop global harm. Would you risk your life for it? Borchi wasn't what Leah expected. It was warmer, quieter, with longer roads and even longer shadows. A city that had seen fires and rebuildings, coups, and silence. But in the corner of her vision, everything looked temporary, like truth could burn it down again at any moment. She followed the doctor's clue to a former veterinary institute outside the city. Locals said it caught fire 9 months ago, mysteriously. No press coverage. No rescue mission. Just smoke one morning and charred fences the next. But the foundation was still there. And under it, so was everything Mila had hidden. Leah found the entrance to the underground section through a trapdoor in what used to be the staff room. A series of hallways still held faint lights, backup power still humming. It wasn't fully destroyed. It was abandoned in a hurry. As she moved through the darkness with her phone light, she saw murals painted on the walls. Medical diagrams, organ breakdowns, and codes, all handwritten, as though the walls were Mila's final diary. Thermos Group 7, not all died. 3 developed a resistance. 1 was Mila. Batch YX77 survivors are scattered. Names encrypted in phase blue file. If anyone finds this, I'm sorry. I thought I was helping the world. I was helping them build a cage. Leah's hand trembled as she reached a locked file cabinet at the back of the corridor. It was steel, sealed, but scorched around the edges. She kicked it, then pried it open with a crowbar she'd brought from Joe's. Inside, papers, USB sticks, and one hard drive marked Mila Final, to be released if I go missing. Her breath caught. It was real. She stuffed the documents into her bag, zipped it, and turned around, only to hear footsteps. Not rats. Not echoes. Boots. Multiple. Coming fast. She backed into a storage chamber and crouched between boxes. 3 men entered with flashlights. All silent. One of them, She recognized him from a photo in Mila's USB files. He was the lead research officer from Group 7. They spoke Hausa, fast and clipped. Check the terminals. The girl's been here. Leah stayed frozen. But then, her phone vibrated. A silent update pinged in her hand. She forgot to turn off data. They heard it. And turned. She ran. Through metal halls. Past old equipment. Out the exit hatch. They chased her down the corridor until she reached the rusted fence, scaled it, and dropped into the shallow ditch behind the compound. Her arm was bleeding. Her lungs burned. But she kept running. All the way to the roadside where a small bus waited, filled with traders, heading to Kaduna. She got in, clutched her bag, didn't breathe, didn't blink, until the bus was 40 minutes away. Then, she cried. Not because she was scared, but because in her bag were the names, the experiments, the faces, the full truth. And finally, Mila's voice. The USB contained a video. Mila, sitting in a sterile room. "Whoever finds this," she said, eyes red from tears, "you need to know. We were lied to. We were told we were saving the future. But we were sacrificing the poor, the sick, the voiceless. I couldn't stop them alone. But if you're watching this, maybe you can." She paused, then added, "Make them see. Make them listen. And if I die, tell my mother I didn't just vanish. I fought." It didn't stop there. Leah launches a global, digital leak of Mila's files, but power doesn't surrender easily. As threats close in, she must decide, hide and survive, or speak and change everything. Leah didn't sleep for 48 hours. She locked herself in a budget hotel room in Kaduna with 2 power banks, 3 burner phones, and a single goal, to blow the lid off everything. But truth, she learned, is heavy. And uploading it was dangerous. Mila's files contained names of influential men who funded the experiments, photos of the original victims, including herself, medical data proving experimental drugs were illegally tested on poor Nigerians, proof that some officials in the Ministry of Health were paid to look our. The documents didn't just expose a secret lab. They unveiled a system, a network. Leah's hand shook as she opened Mila's final file, an encrypted archive labeled VX Black_Justice. Inside it was a pre-written website, ready to go live. Mila had created it years ago. It only needed a name and a password. Leah entered. Name, Mila Adedeo. Password, they will remember. The site blinked, then loaded. Welcome, Mila. The world is watching. Leah selected Publish All. And just like that, silence broke. The files hit the internet like wildfire. Within 6 hours, #MilaFiles trended globally. Within 12 hours, BBC Africa picked it up. Within 24 hours, 5 top officials were suspended. And within 72 hours, Interpol issued a warrant for one of the scientists seen in the underground facility. But truth came with a cost. 3 burner numbers Leah used started ringing non-stop. Unknown callers. Messages. Threats. Take it down. We know your face. You're next. She checked out of the hotel before sunrise and moved. Cities again, this time to Lokoja. The fear wasn't just for herself anymore. She'd spoken to Mila's mother. She showed her the final video. The old woman wept quietly, then said, "She was always good at hiding pain. I wish I had seen it." Mila's mother gave Leah something, an old locket with Mila's name etched inside. It had never left her neck. Until now. "Finish this," she said. "Make them remember her for the right reasons." And Leah did. With the help of global journalists, the files were verified. The site went multilingual. Victims' families began sharing their stories. Mila became more than a victim. She became a symbol. A name that meant, even shadows have voices. But not everyone celebrated her. In Abuja, powerful people pushed back. Conspiracy claims were aired. Fake articles were published. An arrest warrant was quietly issued for cybercrime and false publication. Leah had to flee again. But this time, she wasn't alone. Volunteers offered safe houses. Lawyers offered free counsel. Students marched with justice for Mila placards outside ministries. She was hunted by power, but protected by truth. And truth is louder. One day, while resting in a small riverside home in Kogi, Leah received a video message from an unknown number. It was Mila, not the recorded one from before. This was different. New. In it, Mila sat by a dusty window, her face older, thinner, but alive. "If you're watching this," she began, "I'm not sure I made it. But if I did, if I escaped, I'm laying low. I'll reach out when it's safe." She paused, then whispered, "Thank you for finishing what I started. You gave my pain a purpose." Leah stared at the screen, eyes burning. For the first time in months, she smiled. The Mila files sparked a parliamentary investigation. New health regulations were passed. Whistleblower protections were enforced. And a year later, a statue was unveiled outside the National Hospital in Abuja. A young woman, kneeling with a laptop on her lap, her head raised defiantly. A plaque beneath read, "In memory of the girl who vanished, but whose truth set many free." This story isn't about a martyr. It's about what happens when one person dares to be seen. Mila didn't vanish. She was erased. By greed. By science without soul. By power that feared exposure. But Leah brought her back. Not in body, but in legacy. And in doing so, reminded the world of something crucial. Even in silence, the truth remembers. Speech Balloon, drop your location in the comments if you followed this story till the end. Let us know where you're watching from, because Mila's voice deserves to echo across the world. Pushpin if you believe in truth and justice. Hit that subscribe button. We'll keep telling the stories others want buried. Until the next voice rises, stay safe, stay bold, and stay watching.